Now, the United States may be the world's most powerful democracy, but the government shutdown shows how far Congress has veered away from the path of political compromise. Incredibly, that idea has been easier to implement in the very crucible of the Arab Spring, Tunisia, where a street vendor set himself on fire and lit the struggle for democracy across the region. It faced a constitutional crisis after the assassination of secular leader Chokri Belaid and, of course, chronic economic problems. But last weekend, as troublemakers in the United States and Italian governments were careening off a cliff, Tunisia's Islamist-led government resigned, and in return, the opposition ratified a new Tunisian constitution that their opponents had labored over for a year and a half. That is the kind of compromise and political maturity that neighboring Egypt and Libya can only admire. And presiding over this peaceful move was President Moncef Marzouki, who's a doctor and a human rights activist. So how did Tunisia manage to achieve consensus? I asked him when he attended the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Mr. President, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for your invitation.
Let me ask you, because Tunisia does seem to have escaped the kind of worst problems that are plaguing your neighboring Arab Spring countries, whether it be Libya, Syria, of course, Egypt. How do you think Tunisia has managed to hold the line so far and keep basically all sides of the political equation in conversation rather than splitting apart?
Well, I think that the situation in Tunisia is much easier because, first of all, we have a homogenous society. You know, this is extremely important. We have a strong civil society. Even under the dictatorship, we used to have a very strong civil society. I am confident because Tunisia has a lot of resilience. But I think that we are really targeted because, I can tell you that inside the country and outside the country, there are a lot of forces that don't want the Arab Spring to succeed in Tunisia. They don't want a success story in Tunisia.
How does the situation in Libya, for instance, affect you? I spoke to the Prime Minister last week, and, you know, he said to me, it's not that we're a failing state, we're not a state yet. We're fragmented, we have militias all over, we have weapons all over. How does that affect you?
Of course, there is a huge impact, but let me remind you that under Gaddafi, you know, Gaddafi was not just a dictator. I think he was a crazy guy, and he forbidden everything, society to organize itself. So after the revolution, I can understand how difficult is it now to have a state and to have a civil society and so forth. They have really to begin from nothing. Now all the terrorists coming, they come from Libya. There is a smuggling, arms smuggling coming from Libya, and this is why we are working very closely with our Libyan brothers to control the frontiers. Like we are working also very hard with our Algerian brothers.
Do you have enough to control the frontiers?
No, not enough. It's a huge task. And this is why we are asking for support from outside. We badly need this help from outside because really we feel for the first time that we are threatened in Tunisia by the terrorists.
The situation in Egypt, now the expulsion of the Muslim Brotherhood, the expulsion of their first democratically elected president, the fact that the army has entered the political arena again. What is your reaction to that, and how does that affect Tunisia? You have managed to escape without having the army in politics.
As I told you, we have a professional army, never involved with the politics since the independence. But, you know, I'm very worried by what's happening in Egypt, I would say as a Democrat, before being as a head of state also as a Democrat, because what's happening in Egypt is extremely dangerous. I'm very surprised, and I can say I'm very shocked by the fact that you have so-called liberals, so-called human rights activists and so forth, backing the outset of an elected president, crack down on political parties, accepting this level of violence against civil population. That's extremely shocking for me as a Democrat. But an important part of those liberal, I think they betrayed democracy. But on the other hand, I am also very, very afraid that, you know, Muslim Brotherhood is the central part of a wide spectrum of the Islamists. And on the other hand, you have the Islamists, the new Islamists who will fill this vacuum. Those guys would say, never, never again with democracy. So we're going to have this confrontation between secularists, extremist secularists, and extremist Islamists, and this would be extremely dangerous, not only for Egypt, but for the whole region. This is what we try to avoid in Tunisia.
You're obviously going to cause a lot of controversy with those statements. Do you buy what the Egyptian liberals say, which is that the Muslim Brotherhood pushed the envelope, was actually not moderate enough, was too extremist, called its opponents infidels, and was not willing to have a political dialogue? It was sort of my way or the highway.
I'm not defending Muslim Brotherhood. I do believe that the policy was not a good one. They should have done the same thing in Tunisia, keeping the dialogue with opponents and so forth. But once again, my problem is not the Brotherhood. My problem is democracy. And as I told you, what happened is extremely dangerous for democracy. I hope that democracy would resume in Egypt, but I'm afraid that it would take long, long time.
Does the Al-Shabaab attack from Somalia into Kenya have any ramifications as far away as Tunisia?
Oh, no. I think that there is a link. I do believe that all this, there is a huge network of Salafists, of jihadists working together. You know, the people, now my main problem is Syria. Syria is becoming an internal problem. It is an internal problem because we have about between 500 or 800 young people, Tunisian young people, going there for jihad. And I guess some of them, let's say 200 or 300, would come back home, and then they could be a threat. And we have had also the same phenomena in Mali. We have a lot of Tunisians have been there in Mali.
And just finally, in your own country, obviously, you know, a lot of the Arab Spring, well, frankly, the Arab Spring started in your country, and it was about the economy mostly.
Sure.
A young vendor set himself on fire. And the economy is something that you all have to really worry about. A new Pew poll said that 54% of Tunisians now view democracy favorably. That's down from 63% last year. And a majority say the country is worse off without the previous dictator. What is your reaction to that and the fact that they feel that they're not getting their economic
Before being head of
gains?
state, I have been professor of public health, and now how serious. This is not serious. This kind of polls are not serious. You know, I can assure you that Tunisian would stick to democracy because they know what dictatorship means. Of course, they are a little bit deceived because, you know, after a revolution, the level of expectation is very, very high. And we have to explain to them that now they got freedom of expression and freedom of faith, and this is very, very important. But we have also, I am explaining all the time to the people that, you know, we had this heritage for more than 5 decades of corruption and so forth, and we're not going to solve the economic problems overnight. And the problem is that all those 3 challenges are linked. The more we wait, you know, the more we have economic failure because people would not invest in before having a stable government and so forth. This is why we're fighting on 3 fronts. And that, but once again, I'm very, very confident. I think the Arab Spring who starts in Tunisia will not die in Tunisia.
President Marzouki, thank you so much indeed for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.